It's a wonderful time to walk in the woods and just ponder things, wonder about life, wonder about who you are and what you are, how all of this came to be. And I know yesterday I spoke a little bit about this universal temple idea, that this world is the initial temple, the first temple. It's the temple that contains every mosque, every church, every non-temple, every concept. It's where we gather our experience and our learning to build whatever sense of I that we've built. And I was reflecting on the idea of if this is the temple, who is the deity within this temple of the woods, of the forest, of nature? And I thought again about those times when I realized that I've never seen anything of an outside world, that I only experience a mind-generated symbol for what is decoded from the senses, from the nerve information coming into the brain. And so really, in one sense, I was thinking, well, perhaps I'm the deity within this temple. And I thought, well, that's a little odd way of thinking, because I'm still talking about a me external to myself. That even this temple that's been created in mind through symbol is still being observed by something different, something other. There's still a watcher of that. And I wanted to go deeper about that sense of I, that sense of me, that is ultimately the creator of the symbol in the mind, this beauty that I witness, that this I that in real time knows beauty, creates beauty, can understand beauty, or not. The choice is within, seemingly. And I began wondering about the dualist, this idea that, that there's such an offense at this idea of being God at some level, not the conscious level, obviously, not the ego level. But I was thinking it's much more of a presumptuous thought to not be God, to actually put a boundary on the divine and say, no, I am other than God. God is separate from me, and that there's somehow a magical boundary where I'm in charge with free will. What a presumption that is. We talked about that lecture a week ago or so, where your mind makes decisions up to 10 seconds before you consciously become aware of that decision. And Vivekananda's writings in his study on freedom, that any world that has a cause and effect is by necessity not free, because you are always subject to the cause and subsequently the effect of many things and the cause of many things, that there is no real distinction there. So it seemed to me only reasonable that within, the very deepest within, that there is that consciousness, that awareness, that you and I are the awareness of awareness. But the goal is to know the awareness itself, not as it's reflected in the mind, not as an observer of thought or observer of philosophy or an observer of sentience, but the thing itself, which can't be known because it breaks free of the bonds of subject-object. It breaks free of the bonds of a separateness, of a duality, of an otherness. And it's only in that beautiful space that pure love can exist, where pure compassion, the very highest compassion or empathy, the 0 point, where there is no other, that perfected love, that perfected compassion, that perfected empathy exists. To know that oneness, to be aware of it. Who is the creator of this beauty that the mind is showing to you, that you see, presumably, and it's a big presumption that we see it through the senses, because we have no way of validating an outside world, just like the dreamer in the dream. And yet it falls in on itself, almost fractally, getting more and more deep and simple, less defined as each boundary goes away. A lot to be learned, a lot to grow from, religious or not, just by contemplating this experience of being, trying to figure out a definition of existence. What is it? To figure out a definition of thinking. What is it? Where does it come from and where does it go to? This observer in the mind, how is it that we break into two people, that we in ourself become dual, as the thinker and the observer of thought, not knowing really which came first? If we were the origin, the ego self was the origin of thought, why is it that we have to play it back to ourselves in our mind? Where is the knowing of the isness? Where is the source of the thinking? Where does it exist where it doesn't have to be conjured and observed? Just some ideas, just some wonderings for that next simple walk in the woods.